Hi, this is Editor's Take. I'm Sakshi Batra, and with me is Gaurav Choudhury. He's the Deputy Executive Editor of Moneycontrol, and we are here to discuss and have a look at the key decisions made by the Modi government in the first 100 days of Modi's government's second term. Thanks a lot, Gaurav, for joining in. Well, Prime Minister Modi actually described the first 100 days of his second term in three words, which is development, trust, and big changes. While on the other hand, we actually saw Congress, slamming the government, saying that it was utter chaos, there was tyranny, and no development that took place in the first 100 days. What are your first thoughts on this?
Well, the defining factor of this, the first 100 days of the current term of this government is the pace of decision making. And on May 30th, they took oaths. The election results were announced on May 23rd, 30th of May, they took oath. On 31st, the first cabinet met, and one of the first decisions they took was to universalize the PM Kisan scheme of 6,000 rupees every month to every eligible. So all farmers are now eligible for the PM Kisan scheme, and they followed it up with immediately with various other schemes. In fact, the first session of the parliament was an extremely long session. In between, we saw many important decisions and legislations actually coming through.
Right.
Say, for instance, triple talaq.
Oh yes.
Stands out as something that it was the government's way of demonstrating its political will to carry out social reforms, which was at one point always thought to be almost a no-go area.
Right.
Also, the manner in which the abrogation of Article 370 was carried out, although it has been put to question by several critics, with the process not being followed in a democratic manner. But be that as it may, it also shows the government's political will to execute certain decisions, which was always thought to be politically very sensitive. Also, we saw the legislation of the Motor Vehicles Amendment Act, and we can see the rules have kicked in with very high fines, enforcement now in place in most states, and fines extending up to about 25,000 rupees for traffic rule violations. That bill was not passed in the previous session, but got stuck in Rajya Sabha for want of consensus, but it was passed in the first session itself. So in this respect, in the pace of so far as the pace of decision making is concerned, the first 100 days of this government compares very commendably with any previous government. But the sticking point, however, here is the economy, and all these decisions would have come at a time when the economy is probably going through its worst phase in 6 years, and recent data actually doesn't present a very rosy picture of the economy. In fact, it could probably get even worse. But that is something that probably the government would have loved to do it a little differently. Sure. Or maybe wanted the economy to, function in a manner that would have shown the government even better light.
Right. So, what would you point out as the biggest hit and the biggest flop of this government's first 100 days?
So, the first, there are a couple of big hits. Among the big hits, obviously, the triple talaq bill, abolition of triple talaq and criminalizing of triple talaq. The process, it was a social reform that has been long pending for years and have been for want of political consensus. It was not carried through, but this government showed the political will, and also very deft floor management in Parliament to get the bill through. Likewise, abrogation of Article 370. Motor Vehicles Act is also a big hit, and a few other legislations. But one of the biggest misses of this government has been the management of the economy, if I were to point out. Yeah. And I think it missed a trick here or there, a couple of tricks here or there in trying to fix the economy. One, the budget, the union budget, the first budget of this government's new term, was an occasion to tell the world that economy is going to be attached utmost primacy. Sure. It did attach utmost primacy, but it wasn't. I would believe that it wasn't probably a case of an occasion lost. Yeah. And there was possibility of the government using that occasion to make some very big bang policy announcements. Those did not come through on expected lines. Yeah. And the spate of data that has followed through, and some of the decisions, say for instance, the controversial surcharge on foreign portfolio investors, did not do, actually caused a lot of harm insofar as sentiments are concerned. The government did roll it back later, but by that time, I think government spent a couple of weeks more than what it should have in trying to decipher and trying
Sure.
to dissect what the problems in the economy were. Having said that, it has tried to course correct, and the recent measures that it has taken also show that the government is no longer in a denial mode.
Yeah.
But I would have expected the government to actually get into action far earlier than what it did.
Absolutely. So that's what I was coming to. And I wanted to ask about the measures that the government has been taking in the recent past 1 or 2 weeks. We have seen a rollback of the FPI surcharge that was announced in the budget. Then there has been a consolidation in the PSU banking space. There's also easier of the FDI norms as well. So all these measures are also being taken to actually achieve the $5 trillion economy target that the government has set for itself. Are these enough, or more needs to be done, really?
No, these are, and if you look at what the government has done,
Yeah.
and the decisions taken, it's in fact most of these decisions were part of the manifesto
Okay.
of the BJP poll manifesto, and to come out and take oath and immediately hit the road running, so far as poll manifesto implementation is concerned, is quite commendable. But having said that, on the economic front, the government could have done several things in a different way, and probably a bit more. I could have demonstrated a bit more proactiveness than it did in the initial first few weeks of its current term.
Right.
And also when it did, there are many things that still probably needs to be done.
Sure.
As I said, some of the things it has demonstrated that government wants to execute corrective measures, which it has done in the first set of measures when it announced that the rollback of the air surcharge on FPI, and also the measures for auto industry to boost demand, etc., etc. But as I said, the economy is in a state where many critics now said that we have our back to the wall, and the government can use this as an opportunity to come out with some very serious big bang structural reforms,
Yeah.
which may not would have been possible, or would have got caught in a labyrinth of political debates and discussion both inside Parliament and outside Parliament. But a government can actually use this occasion to announce some of these measures which would have otherwise got lost in debates. The
Right.
idea here is to front load structural reforms and also to front load government expenditure and execution of projects.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, then, Gaurav, for sharing all those insights there. Well, the first 100 days of the Modi government's second term have definitely been very, very challenging. You talk about the auto slowdown that has been seeing the worst kind of crisis that it is witnessing. There is a slowdown in the GDP growth as well, and the government really probably needs to do much more than it is right now doing. A big bang approach is what experts really believe that the government needs to have to pump prime the economy and put the economy back on the growth path. Thanks a lot for joining us in this edition of Editor's Take, and do stay logged on to moneycontrol.com for more news and updates. Thanks for watching.